Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. Yeah, we haven't done one of these for a while. My problem with Man City on this occasion. For the obvious reasons, of course, that allegedly they have broken the financial fair play rules numerous times. This is according to Sky. But of course, it's been released more widely that Man City have been charged with breaking financial fair play rules over 100 times over a 9-year period, which starts in 2009 and goes on to 2018. And Man City, of course, will have won 3 Premier League titles, numerous other bits and pieces, EFL Cups, FA Cups, not Champions Leagues as of yet. And I sort of could have jumped on this one, but I didn't know enough. I've watched some other videos from other people, and I actually think they're really good. But for me, I kind of, when it comes to sort of money and legality and all that stuff, it makes me a little bit nervous. So I'd like to just take a second just to kind of read up on what the situation is, to sort of establish what my thoughts are, and then to be able to kind of provide how I'm feeling about it. Because I think I'm always trying to kind of come from an empathetic angle. And I think it's easy to allow Man City to be the villains, which they might be. And I think one thing that I do like is the fact that this hasn't gone away. And I think the fact that the sport that we know is being lost, and the money that's within it, and in particular, this word, the distances between the haves and the have-nots, are making the sport that is so integral. And actually, the sport is the thing that keeps it alive. You know, the ability for underdogs to win, the ability for anyone to win. The sport saves itself, fortunately, but it gets harder and harder to show that passion, show that enthusiasm for the game when it feels like so many people are at an advantage or a disadvantage. But then around that, of course, money is a huge part of the game. Money is a huge part of life. And we spoke about this. I had a bit of a rant, didn't I, on the podcast with Flav last week, where we're talking about the real Super League and the Premier League and the money that's being spent there. And Man City weren't the first, of course. You know, you've got Chelsea and what they did with Roman Abramovich, the fact that they had, you know, severe debt, £1.5 million worth of debt, which was a bit, you know, they were able to just kind of get away with that in terms of being able to spend so much money time and again. And I think that's the same thing that's kind of occurred with Man City. But what's happened here with Man City is it's been hidden even more so. And it does feel like, from what things I'm reading, it's something that it's one where the Premier League have got to a point where they've not got the answers they've wanted, or they have got the answers that they thought might be the case, or they've just got someone who's not really kind of working with them. Now, I could read out the statement from Man City, but it's redundant, if I'm honest, because the bottom line is, what is the actual bottom line? Do you get it? Yeah. The fact that this hasn't gone away would make you wonder, again, allegedly, that something has gone awry here. And for 100 different actions of financial fair play breach to occur, and I think the one thing I would say with 100 different ways of doing it, there's actually a breakdown here. This is a really good article. I'll put it in the description, actually, because it shows the different ways that they've supposedly broken the rules. Let's get there. So 50 alleged number of breaches of Premier League rules, 8 when it comes to manager remuneration. Yeah. And with that, it seems like Roberto Mancini in particular has been given a bit too much money, and they've had sort of secret contracts for different players, or managers in particular, sorry, not players. Man City charged with Premier League profit and sustainability, alleged number of breaches there, 25. And then in terms of assisting Premier League investigations, that's the big one here, isn't it? And I think that's why the Premier League, because this is what's really interesting about it for me, is that what I sort of have been preaching for a long time is that it's about the distances between the haves and the have-nots. And the only way you retain that ability to truly have, you know, the sport that we want is to put a ceiling there. That ceiling needs to be put in place. And it's a very loose ceiling at the best of times anyway. And obviously there's going to be an element of distances in terms of the teams that have money and the teams that don't. And Man City are obviously a club that has money. But what I find it really interesting in this is that if you've got all the money, surely you should be able to be squeaky clean. You should be able to, but it's an interesting idea, if this is what's occurred here, that despite the ability to pay for everything calmly, never not have too little, that they will be finding nooks and crannies, allegedly, to cheat. And that is repugnant. It can't happen. And as I say, the statement is difficult to read in terms of this idea that this is a surprise. It's not a surprise. Like, come on. Like, surely you will have known that these things will have been occurring or circling around you. Like, but it's not worth the paper it's written on. So if this turns out to be correct, the thing that it then hits me is how it has affected others, how it has affected the fans of Man City, and how you move forward from it. Now, I actually see this as a positive thing, strangely, because this is something that's been circling around. You know, it's been this sort of fog that we've had to look through the sport through. And it feels like it's been there right in front of our eyes in terms of too much money being spent and it needs to be curtailed. The sort of ripple effect of all of this is the fact that Liverpool haven't been able to, could have won more trophies basically, and could have celebrated those with their fans. Same goes for Man United. Like, when we talk about football, we're talking about these uplifting moments that sort of get us through the day, that provide escapism, provide even the possibility of escapism. So first of all, for, you know, Liverpool's only title was kind of behind closed doors, wasn't it? You know, they celebrated in the stands, but it wasn't how you pictured it. It wasn't what you'd invested years and years of money in for those fans that go to the games. Or obviously fans otherwise in terms of buying stuff, whatever. But also, I think the thing to remember is that it is easy to go after Man City and to go after Man City fans. Now, if you've become a Man City fan in this period, for me, that's a bit of a nonsense. And you've probably done it because there's a player that you like. That's the only thing I can kind of find. But otherwise, you've essentially gone, they're the best team, I'll go support them. There's no authenticity in that, in my opinion. And that might annoy some people. But I think the reason I want to say that is because of the fans that were there before that. And the fans that were there before that will be there if it all fell apart, if the owners left, if the money wasn't there, if they were League One side. They would be there because they were there. And when Aguero scores that goal, of course, they've had those moments. And, you know, I guess you'd rather be that side of it than a Liverpool fan who's missed out on titles, or Man United fan. But in particular, you know, Liverpool, in terms of the drought that they'd had, that could well have been stolen by the ability for Man City to buy players that, or whatever it might be, to break the rules, ultimately break the rules. But for Man City fans, for those moments to be tainted for themselves, or ultimately to be dragged through the mud morally, when they've done nothing, they've done absolutely nothing wrong apart from support their team, that's not nice. That's not nice at all. And that is so unnecessary when you have the money, if this is all true. So that's all really sad. But I think often you can kind of roll your eyes at the sort of, moral outrage, or roll your eyes at the idea of, well, look, the horse has bolted, all that kind of stuff. But if you want to make a change, you have to make a change at some point, and you have to draw a line. So I welcome this stance from the Premier League. I welcome their desire to have it independently looked at. And according to Man City and their hierarchy, they welcome the opportunity to put this to bed for once and for all. And if that is to be, what I hope that leads to is people behaving themselves, or people clearly behaving themselves. And when I think that Premier League, but if the Premier League are able to exercise those muscles and not just fall away flimsily, then they create a bit more power, and then they can create that ceiling that we're talking about. And look, everyone's self-serving here, right? The Premier League has a very, very strong league, and they want to retain that. And I do wonder if there's something within this which is, one, it's hopefully it's, you know, wanting to have justice and fairness within the sport. And, you know, the biggest problem when it comes to that is the gaps between. But also, it will be one where they will be fearful of this Super League. And it feels like you're making your way towards it. And the reason you're making your way towards it, as I've said numerous times, is not allowing more money in. It's you have to rein people in, and you need to create an element of confinement to create that element of competition. The Premier League is incredibly fortunate that all the teams have lots of money, and all the teams are creating a Super League in themselves because they are, you know, going into the atmosphere in terms of comparisons with La Liga and Serie A. And so when we talk about Tebas with La Liga and what's gone on there, or what they're trying to do there, and they're trying to rein in the Real Madrids and Barcelonas, that's why everyone needs to do it. And yes, you can go, well, hang on a minute, Real Madrid and Barcelona were all over the place for a long time. Yeah, mistakes happen. People get it wrong. That doesn't mean that you can't start again and look to kind of bring it back together. So like Newcastle United, for example, they are spending money. But at the moment, they're spending it within a ceiling that is palatable, I think. And I think the longer that continues, so the longer you can, and the better you can retain people within a sort of tighter bubble, then you give yourselves a bit of a better chance. League to league, that's tricky, isn't it? Because I think the money comes from that broadcasting right. But within the competition of your league, that is something that you have control over. So the Premier League has to hang on to that. And I think they need to make that move now, it seems like, if wrongdoings have occurred. Will it just be Man City? And also, you know, the reason this could get so messy, you know, if you think of basically teams that haven't got into the Champions League because Man City were in that top four, they could easily go, well, hang on, I want this money, I want that money. That would be, you know, a whole new mess. But sometimes you got to get dirty to clean up. That's not even a phrase. I don't really know what I'm saying about that. But the thing that I sort of hang on to all the time is when I was in Qatar, there was a lot of that fog that I was talking about earlier. But even in that scenario, if there is a safety to the sport in terms of the competition of it, and international football is one of the last few things of that, where you have your players and they're from your country and that's it. The fairy tale can make its way through and we can still enjoy the football. But so we've always got that sport to sort of hang on to, but wouldn't it be so much nicer if we had something that we could really be proud of? And that has to start at some point. And so I would empower the Premier League to do what they're doing. And they obviously are only as strong as all of their members, not just one of them. And one of them, it seems like, is you know, shirking the rules. In terms of punishment, obviously we spoke about, like, you know, teams could be suing them if it were to happen. And this is, again, from that article. In terms of suspending a club from playing league matches, I just don't think that would ever happen. That feels incredibly likely. Points deduction. Recommend to the board that league matches be replayed. That's never going to happen because it's too much. Recommend to the board that the league expels the respondent. I don't think they would ever go. They wouldn't do that. There's too much history within the club. Compensation. I wouldn't want to see that because that's pointless in itself because they've got money. So I don't think that will truly hurt them. I don't know if their pockets are, you know, able to be hurt if, again, they are guilty. Cancel or refuse registration of players. I guess moving forward, if there was some wrongdoing there, possibly. I don't really know what that means. Order the club to pay costs and make such other order as it thinks fit, or do what you want. Because even a relegation doesn't really hurt Man City long term. They go down, they're about to back up, and that'll be the end of it. But here's the thing, right? I don't care about what happens to Man City, aside from the fact that if they're guilty, that leads to more regulation. More regulation. More regulation. Can't make that clearer. The more regulation there is, the better, honestly, the better the product will be. Because the better the competition is, the more exciting it is. I'm telling you. You know, the Premier League's not going anywhere. You know, we as fans are not going to be not excited about the Premier League. And it's an incredible product in terms of the fact that I saw a video on The Athletic, and Matt Slater was talking about it. He was saying that it's an amazing product, that they make more from international money in terms of the TV rights than they do domestically. That's very strange for, you know, for a product. So it's the Premier League is strong, but it is getting ugly, and there's too much money being spent. And for billionaires just to be able to kind of chuck down more and more money just to get out of holes all the time takes away from the sport. And I think we all agree with that. And I'm pretty sure Man City fans would agree with that. And it's one of those where, like, the Premier League got to be strong here, however long it takes, and utilise the power that comes from that, because there will be a lot of goodwill for the idea that, you know, let's get this better, let's figure this out, and let's safeguard the sport, because at the moment, Super League is coming, and maybe it's within the Premier League already, but at least that is within the domestic, you know, spheres, as opposed to that big old Super League, because that hurts a lot of people. Incredibly serious stuff, but also a huge opportunity. That's how I feel about it. But that will come down to how strong the Premier League or the Independent Commission can be with all of this. But I kind of, and don't take this the wrong way, Man City fans, I'm kind of excited about it, because if there can be some form of, you know, and again, maybe it's self-serving on my point, that some form of justice with it, in terms of looking up and going, okay, at least they're being honest. That's a world I want to live in. Let me know how you're feeling. That's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new. And yeah, again, get involved in the comments, because I always do like reading how you guys feel about this. Man City fans, obviously, in particular. But I do have, obviously, a lot of empathy, because it's just your club. So yeah, let me know how you feel.